All right, guys. Hello and welcome to our second team meeting. I am excited. We're going to keep it kind of short and sweet tonight, about 10-15 minutes, just because I spent a little bit of intimate time with some gals before the call and we kind of just switched some things up tonight. And so I wanted to make sure we could get some training out to some of you that are going to get this recording and watch it. So tonight is all about, the title is I Am in Training. And I kind of stole this from our sermon on Sunday at church. And Alex, you were there, so you kind of can relate to some of the notes I'm going to talk about. But I'm just going to talk about a few notes that I took on my phone, some scripture, and then I'm going to get into some action and training, goal setting type thing, like a game plan basically on, you guys can write down some goals. And it's something that Nick Clark from our gold call kind of did, but I tweaked it some. Okay. So, first of all, one of the verses that our pastor started off with was 1 Corinthians 9. It says, don't you realize that I can't hardly see it. Don't you realize that in a race, everyone runs, but only one person gets the prize? So run to win. All the athletes are just disciplined in their training. They do it to win a prize that will fade away, but will do it for an internal prize. So I run with a purpose at every step. I am not just shadow boxing. I discipline my body like an athlete, training it to do what it should. And I loved that because me and Jill were sitting next to each other and Alex was next to us too. And we're just like, oh my gosh, this relates to business as well. And so we were both just taking notes. And I know she sent her notes to some of her people. And I was like, oh, I'm going to do my training on this because it just hit so close to home, because a lot of us do, especially if you're an athlete, you train and you're disciplined and you come up with a game plan so that you can succeed. And it's the same thing in this business. You have to train, you have to come up with a game plan. And especially when you want to grow a bigger team and you want to keep promoting and you want to, change lives ultimately. Right. And I loved how he said in here, if you are running and you aren't winning, it's because you've been trying for too long. And so he really put emphasis on, you can say you're going to try this. A lot of times we say, right, we're going to try to promote, we're going to try a new diet, we're going to try to eat healthy, we're going to try, to read a book. And a lot of times we don't finish it or we don't do it because we kind of cap ourselves out. We give ourselves a way out almost, because we say, well, I'm going to try, instead of saying, no, I'm in training. I have got a game plan. I am going to hit this. I am going to finish this. I am going to make this a priority to get it done, instead of saying, well, I'm going to try. Right. And so I loved those two comparisons. And I had never heard it that way, because a lot of the times, and I'm guilty of this too, I'm like, well, I'm going to try for this month, or I'm going to try to reach out to 3 to 5 people for the business each day. And it gives me a cop out, because when I don't get it done, it's like, oh, well, I just didn't get it done. Right. I didn't cross it off my to do. And that's exactly what it was. It was just kind of a to do. And I never moved it over to the done column, if that makes sense. So we have to stop trying and start training. So he then moved on to just kind of say, I kind of said that trying is just an attempt to change with minimal consistency. So for example, I said if you say you're going to meal plan and eat healthier, if you're training, do it, right? Stay consistent for a good 60 to 90 days. And let's see if you have some changes, right? It's the same thing as you walk into a gym. You don't expect to walk out with abs, right? It's going to take consistent action. It's going to take training to get there. When you're training, you create a game plan. And I loved how he was like, you get the markers, you get the calendar, you get you get everything, and you get it out in front of you, you get your gear, right? And it's just like, I went back to college basketball days too. And it's like, gosh, I remember the training days, like you sweat, you ran, you did push-ups, you got yelled at, you stayed up late and studied, you went to study hall, like you did all the things because you were training. Not only were you training on the court, but you were training for academics. And it's the same thing in this business. We're training and we're growing, to help people in their health journeys, but we're also training and growing inside, right? Ultimately, it's about the journey that we are on, right? When I get to a certain rank in the company, it's not going to be like, woohoo, I got there, I'm done, I'm finished, have fun, right? I'm going to constantly be growing. I'm going to constantly be gearing up for the next rank. I'm going to constantly be gearing up to help my next person. Like my mission in Plexus is never going to be finished ultimately. And I feel that same way with internally with training personal development, right? You start to get this growth mindset and you crave it and you want it. And it's just like when you pick up one book, what do you do when you're finished with it? You go to the next book, right? Or you finish a devotional. Do you just stop that devotional and that's the only devotional you ever read? No, you go to the next one, right? Same thing with the Bible. Whatever Bible verse, you study a Bible verse, you write it down, you pray over it. You might study it for a day, you might study it for a week, but then you always pick up the Bible and you go to another one, right? So it's the same thing when you're in training. Okay. So I'm gonna read just maybe, I'm gonna try to cut it short and read just maybe the last thing. There are so many good nuggets. That's it in a nutshell. But he said, when I'm training, I'm getting better at what I already am. When we are trying, okay, that doesn't make sense. Sorry, my notes were probably all blurred there. So based on who God says you are to become, how are you going to train? And it's not, I am not training, I am in training. Okay. And so who are you going to become? Like write that down after this call and, think about who are you going to become in this business? Who do you want to become spiritually? Who do you want to become as a mom? Because ultimately you're always growing in all aspects of life if you're in training. Okay. So we're going to get to kind of the game plan of things. Okay. So ranking up doesn't have to be hard and you don't have to sell your soul to do so, which I wrote that down and I'm like, I'm going to tell myself that I'm going to stitch it on a pillow because it doesn't have to, you don't have to sell your soul. You don't have to get burnout. You don't have to get tired. You don't have to hate it, right? You don't have to just be like, gosh, I don't want to be on my phone anymore. Like you get to choose those priorities. You get to set up. That's the beauty of this business. You get to set all of those boundaries. If you don't want to work one day, then don't work one day. If you want to take 2 days off a week, take 2 days off a week. If you want to work 30 minutes a day, work 30 minutes a day. It ultimately is where you want to be financially or health wise. And every one of us are different. And so that's the beauty of, ranking up or how hard you work or how hard you train. Okay. So when we are trying to give ourselves, okay, I already said that part. I'm kind of skipping around. Okay. So write this down. Have your mind set on who you are looking for each day. So write down some things like, are you looking for people that have a strong work ethic? Are you looking for moms, stay-at-home moms, working from home moms? For me, I look for teachers because teachers are very underpaid. I was a teacher, so I can relate to them. I look for moms that, run a daycare. Danielle, I was a babysitter for a long time. I can relate to them too because they're teachers in a sense as well. I look for people with strong vision, work ethic, right? Passion. That's another thing. When people are like, well, I don't want to be salesy. I just turn the question around on them and I say, well, do you think I'm salesy? I hope you don't, because really it's just a passion of mine, right? It's like, it's to me, it's a passion and it's not being salesy. It's just me. I feel like I'm doing a disservice if I don't share with people what it's done for me and my health, for me and my family financially. And I just want to see if that is something that you are open to, right? And you put it back on them. Maybe it is for them, maybe it's not. Okay. So what I want you guys to do is write down your 3-month goal. Nick Clark on our gold call had us write down our 6-month goal, right? I'm going to have you guys write down your 3-month goal because that is December, the end of December. And that is the end of the year. And then the new year will start 2024. New Year's resolutions will start, right? New goals will start, new business stuff will start. It'll be our last stretch to earn our Punta Cana trip in February, right? So write down your 3-month goal and be realistic about it. So we always say, give yourself 60 to 90 days, right? This is 90 days to give yourself a realistic goal. So if you're doing something right now and you're training and it's not working, right now is the time to make a pivot and do something out of your comfort zone, gear up and train hard for these next 90 days. And I guarantee you by the end of December, you're going to see a turnaround. You're going to see some movement, right? You're going to see how training mindset is going to shift from a trying mindset and what you're going to get done and what you're going to achieve, right? So write that down and then write down some strategies to get there. So strategies, let's talk a little bit about strategies. So strategies are just basically topics that you can do to get there, like bullet points. Okay. So for me, these team calls are something that I'm doing to help with my leadership with my team and to help me build community within my team. Because ultimately, when we get to these team retreats and we get to events, I want us to be able to have that close knit and feel like ultimately like we know each other. Right. And I know with me and Alex, we met for the first time this Sunday and it was just magical. Like we had only ever talked through a screen, on the phone, through voicemail. We've seen each other, but we had never, just gave each other a hug. And it literally felt like we had known each other for forever. And so that is the kind of, atmosphere and friendship that I want to build on my team. I was talking to my other girl, Morgan, that had just signed today. I was talking to her on a welcome call and she was just talking to me about how already some of her friends are a little skeptical. And right away, I was just like, gosh, I want to do a Zoom call with them or I want to do a phone call because I want them to know I'm a real person. And I told her, I was like, I'm a cool mom. Like, I'm not like, I don't feel 30. I know you're 19, but I don't feel like I'm old. So I was like, I just want them to know, like, we're real people and, let your people know you're real and you're authentic and be you. You don't have to change that. So that's something team calls. I got into a tangent there. Sorry. I personally am one of my strategies is to develop at least one goal a month. It's a really big goal, but for where I'm at in this business, it's a very tangible goal. And it's something that, does take work and it does take consistent action, but it's doable and it can be doable for you guys too. So maybe your goal is to have 2 silvers a month or 1 silver, set some strategies up for yourself. Maybe it's just to enroll 3 people a month. That's another strategy of mine. Focus on my 3 and then help maybe just one of them get their products covered. Okay. So think of some strategies. Launch events. That's a strategy. And then tactics. Tactics are these daily tasks that you're going to do every single day to train to get to where you want. Okay. So it might be the winning day sheet. It might be welcome calls, which I encourage. Anyone that you sign up immediately within the next 48 hours, get them on a welcome call. Another thing that I do, I know Jill and Rachel are doing the same thing, but as soon as we have someone sign up, we send them the hand mixer. Okay. That's just something that if I sign someone up, I send it to them, the next day, within the next day or so. I want to make sure a tactic of mine is to share in my stories something that I can bring of value. So that means if people get in my stories, what can they take away? Something that they can take away. Did they take away a kind quote? Did they take away, how to make a yummy recipe? Did they take away where I got those straws that I shared today? Maybe they want to go get some big straws too. Something that they can say, oh, well, that's really cool. She's sharing about that. I want to follow her and I want to keep seeing what she's going to bring to the table. I'm going to open the chat so I can see what you're saying. I did that with the 2 VIPs from this month so far. Thinking I'm going to go back to a couple at a time. To my other VIPs since May and send them to them too. Yes, I actually went back to, what was it, May. And that's when I was doing the journal with the postcard inside. And I went back because I had them already. I wanted to get through them. And I went back and I wrote in that little Plexus journal and I wrote them like a message. I had them sign it. And then I went ahead and put that like little postcard on there. And I did send that. I went all the way back to May too. So feel free to do that. Another tactic that I've started to do, and you guys might have noticed, is on Fridays specifically, we kind of treat that as Customer Appreciation Day. And in my stories, I try to shout out my team members that are really working, that are, doing a good job. I try to do something positive in there and then I tag them in it. so that they're just getting like okay, she sees me, she knows I'm trying, type thing people love to be seen. And it's true, even myself. Right. So just remembering shout outs, even if they're trying, it doesn't have to be they've added 3 people. Shout out, right? It can be, gosh, she got in her stories today. Shout her out, right? She, was bold and talked to 3 people today in a messenger, chat. Shout her out. So those are just some tactics that you can do. Another thing, and then I'm going to wrap up this call. And I love that Nick shared this was, and if you missed the gold call or you've never heard of the gold call, it's something that our diamond puts on, but it was to create a list, and it has 3 different sections in it. And so you can see mine. So here is the 3 different sections. So you have a to-do, which is, let me push this. I have the cheap version of Zoom. You have your to-do list, right? You have all the things that you need to do. It's basically anything you feel overwhelmed with. It's a brain dump. So literally just list it. Then you have the doing, and you can only take 3 of those things and do them. So my first 3 were welcome call with Morgan. I did that today. So I moved it over to the done column. I had team call, so I'll be able to move that over to the done column, cross it off tonight and push done, or not push done, but mark done. I had check in with step group. I did that. So I moved it over to the done column, and I marked it off. So you can only be doing 3 things. Once you get those 3 things crossed off, you put them in the done column, and then you can go over here and get 3 more things and then focus on those 3 things. Does that make sense? It really broke it down for me, because if you're anything like me, I see this to-do list and I try to get to all of it that day. Like every single bit of it, I try to get to. I'm just that type of person. It makes me feel better. And something I've learned is it doesn't have to be done. And it took me 3 years in this business to realize that, and to also turn off notifications. I turned off, and now you might be noticing it takes me a little longer to respond. Here recently, I turned off my notifications for Instagram, for Facebook. The only thing I still have is text messages and phone calls, just in case people really need me urgently. But it has like literally just lifted so much from me, and knowing that I don't have to get everything on that to-do list done at a certain time. If I do need to get it done by a certain deadline, you can write like a time on it or a date on it, or, a certain day of the week on it. I loved when Nick was explaining that, because I get overwhelmed with tasks and to-do lists. I love to make the list, but I get overwhelmed with it. Same. Mine for social have always been off, because I feel like as soon as I get a message, I have to respond. Yes. And that's definitely just a learning curve, especially when you start working on social media. We live in a drive-through world. We expect instant gratification, right? Or we want to respond instantly. But when really, if we respond instantly all the time, especially to our team, they're going to expect us to always be right there every time they need something, and they're never going to learn how to do it by themselves. And so that's something, even if you see the notification come in, just wait just a minute and give it like time. And usually by the time you check it again, they had already found the answer. They just needed to look a little bit. Now there's different cases, scenarios and timelines and stuff for that. But my advice would be to turn off notifications. It definitely helps. And then whenever you sit down to work your business, or you're in big training mode for that day, get in there, respond to as many as you can, and whatever you didn't get to get done, close it and get back to it whenever you pick back up to work again. Okay. So, your homework, I'm going to give you, I always try to leave with a little bit of homework. And so your homework today is to write down your 3-month goal. Write down your 3-month goal, where you want to be at the end of December. That's 90 days, and be realistic with that. Do you want to grow by 100 points each month? What's that going to look like for you? Is that going to get you close to gold? Is that going to get you close to senior gold? What are you going to have to do to get there? Are you going to have to add a business builder? How are you going to get that person to be a business builder? How are you going to pour into that business builder? Are you going to just focus on one person? Are you going to get them together and have them run together? if they're just starting out. So think about some strategies that can cut down some time and efforts for yourself, but then can also push and train and lead people too. Okay. So I'm going to stop recording and then I'll kind of leave it for a Q&A for the next 5 minutes. But thank you all so much for being on the team call tonight.